Excellent. Hello, everyone. My name is Ron. I'm with Safety Center Incorporated. I appreciate you tuning into our podcast today. We've got some very special guests, and we're going to talk about an important subject related to COVID-19 in our state and in our region. Again, I want to thank you for tuning in, whether you're a SacRT client or passenger and a Safety Center safety professional, or one of our many students. We appreciate you being here. We're going to talk to the folks at Sacramento Regional Transit, and we really want to extend our thanks for being here, and also thank you and your team as essential workers for being there to support the general public, making sure as a critical part of our infrastructure, making sure that people can get to and from where they need to be. So I'd like to ask for introductions, and Lisa, if you wouldn't mind starting. Lisa Hines with SacRT, if you tell us who you are and what your capacity is with the...
Sure. So I started with Sacramento Regional Transit in October of 2019. I'm the Vice President of Safety, Security, and Customer Satisfaction. Prior to that, I retired in August after serving the Sacramento Police Department and retiring as a police captain after 28 and a half years of service. When I was a lieutenant, SacRT contracts their police department. So I ran the police department for just under 2 years. So essentially you're the chief of police. So I had an opportunity to work with Transit SacRT for 2 years prior to that. And the other part that I wanted to just share is that I have a master's in law enforcement and public safety leadership.
Excellent, thank you. And your role now?
I'm the Vice President of Safety, Security, and Customer Satisfaction.
Awesome, thank you so much, Lisa. And Mr. McCabe, Steve, if you would.
Certainly. My name's Steve McCabe. I've been here almost 4 years at Sacramento Regional Transit. I have worked previous to this doing environmental health and safety in various locations for about high 20 years, almost 30 years. Everything from aviation, healthcare, emergency services, and large, heavy civil construction, structural steel, structural concrete across the country. Educational background is actually in the sciences, and environmental health and safety found me, and have done multiple trainings and certifications over the course of my career.
Excellent, thank you very much. Well, if we could, we're going to jump right into the discussion, the conversations. COVID is obviously on everyone's minds, and it's affected the way that we live, the way that we work, operate, commute, transport. So question number one. So we're always curious about agencies like yourself in having a preparedness plan, such as, what we have to do for COVID when it impacts the entire community. Did SacRT have a plan already in place so that you could address this type of situation?
That's a great question. So SacRT had an antiquated plan relative to a prior illness. So we had a contagious virus plan, but we needed to update it. And we also realized the need to add more plans like continuity of operations, emergency response, and how to shut down an emergency. And so we had like very little, and we needed to build upon it quickly.
Very good. Excellent. So side question, has SacRT ever had to implement a plan such as this or anything near this in the past?
To this degree, no. We did have some response, particular to the air quality conditions for our essential workers back during the campfire. Okay. But it was certainly not as sustained or involved as this has been.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Steve. I'd like to believe that you guys are adopting frequently, making changes to your programs as information comes forward about, the severity of the virus and the transmission of the virus and things like that. Can you share the evolutions of your protocols with SacRT once, we become more familiar with the environment?
Certainly. We started tracking the virus probably in December as it was beginning to make world health news. And so we started looking at it and realized that we had some stuff in place already. We were going into the cold and flu season here in the Sacramento area. So we'd already instituted hand sanitizer for our operators and also wipes. So as they change vehicles, change work locations, they were able to go ahead and sanitize their work area prior to starting, just mainly to limit cold and flu. We already had come up with fogging using chlorine dioxide of our revenue vehicles as a means to go ahead and lessen fomite transmission of the cold or flu virus amongst passengers. So really, when this happened, it just needed to step up what we had and figure out how we were going to handle the other 90% of it. So we managed our we managed the resources we had, and we had a stock already of about 30 days supply, maybe a little longer, but certainly not something that would sustain us through the pandemic. We had a great challenge that has been out there trying to, as everyone else has, securing personal protective equipment and or supplies and materials, everything from hand sanitizers to spray bottles to disinfectants, as well as N95 masks, and for us, the ever elusive sanitizing wipe. So all those things ended up being just a real challenge for us, and it dominated a lot of our time. We've been really fortunate to have a lot of our government affairs personnel have worked with the various state agencies, and Cal OES as well as the FTA have provided us an awful lot of supplies, but it was about a month and a half lagging as far as availability went. So we're able to go ahead and do that. And we identified as much makeshift supply chains as we could. We went ahead and took our supply of N95 masks or filtering face piece masks, and we collected them so that we could use them under the OSHA voluntary standard and make them available to our high-risk personnel who are in contact with the public on a regular basis. So for us, that included bus operators, our transit ambassadors who ride the trains, as well as light rail operators. So we did that, and in doing so, we transitioned our maintenance personnel and facilities personnel into using elastomeric masks with P100 filters, which meant we needed to go through and fit test everybody and get that training done. So we did that. We also felt it was really important for us to get the information out to our personnel. And for this, our communications or marketing personnel just did a great job of, we'd give them the concept and they would just put, there'd be a new banner or a new sign or new things on social media for us. And that worked out great. We also worked with a local vendor, Dry Diggings, who's a distillery, and they gave us hand sanitizer. So we were able to go ahead and distribute that for our personnel. Disinfectants, we had chlorine dioxide, which we used from a product from Chlorine, and we ended up using that as our disinfectant, as well as just our fogging chemical. So that worked out really well for us too. But it required, training and getting the information and how to use that to all of our personnel. Obviously we had nitrile gloves, so we could reduce contact transmission. Our revenue center personnel went ahead and changed the way they handled cash when they got it from fare boxes, so that way you would have a certain amount of like 3 days or 4 days of idle time to go ahead and reduce the risk of fomite transmission. Additionally, wow, Lisa, there's probably more. Can you think of it?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just to reiterate, it was really hard to acquire PPE during the onset, and now we have a 60-day supply, and that is coveted because it was so hard. But now we're in a place which we're really happy in that we're able to provide masks to our passengers, and that's a huge place to be at, that we could share some of our inventory with our passengers.
That is impressive. Nice job. So Steve, if I could ask you one additional question in regard to the chlorine oxide for a layperson, can you tell me why that's important?
Sure. Chlorine dioxide, the reason we picked it is that it's efficacious. In other words, it works. We know that it's broad spectrum. It's also a low-level disinfectant. Many of the high-level disinfectants that we considered, they have a high incidence of either workplace-induced asthma and or sensitivity for the people that get exposed to it using it regularly. So for us, that wasn't an acceptable risk to accept for our personnel. The other is you really don't know who's sensitive to what when they're riding public transit. So we wanted something that dissipated quickly. In 15, 20 minutes, chlorine dioxide breaks down into oxygen, chlorine, and leaves a trace residue of water. The fogging is just the vector or the mechanism for us to be able to disperse the chlorine dioxide. And when it lands is when it begins to break down really quickly, and it causes the disinfection of whatever surface it comes in contact with.
Awesome. Great information. Thank you very much. Another question for you. The virus environment has pulled out creative, innovative skills in many organizations across the board. So is there one innovative safety measure or protocol that SacRT has implemented that you guys are most proud of?
I'd actually like to speak to two of those. So one would be marketing. Our marketing team has done such a dynamic and an incredible job coming up with clever sayings or messaging to all of our writers, and they had to do it very quickly. So they've worked hand in hand with us every single day that we've worked on this program. They've come up with cute slogans, like right now with masks, they have "wearing is caring." So it's very positive messaging with our writership, as well as our employees, because we needed our employees to start wearing masks and wash their hands for 20 seconds and do all the things that we're asking everybody to do. So I would have to acknowledge marketing. The second thing, which was pretty incredible, is we didn't have plexiglass bus barriers in our buses. And traditionally you would see that in a system or a transit agency, and they would use that for security so that the bus operator would be safe from someone spitting on them or hitting them or throwing something at them. Well, our bus maintenance team really quickly developed a bus barrier that could be used to protect the operators from our passengers and our passengers from the operators. So within a very, very short time, they came up with a prototype. They worked with the police services to make sure that it was in compliance with the California Vehicle Code, and they've installed it on all of our big buses. And they're now moving towards our cutaway buses or paratransit type buses, and they're working on a structure for that. So very impressive.
Awesome. So hats off to your maintenance guys for being so creative, right? And skilled. So awesome. Thank you very much. The next question is, surely there's many challenges faced to implementing the broad spectrum of safety measures, across multiple modes of transportation. The question is, right, in order to keep riders safe and keep colleagues safe, what kind of advice, through what you've learned, what kind of advice would you have for other businesses as they face this COVID environment and try to protect themselves?
Basically, the things that worked well for us were to identify who was in charge of the COVID response so that we had a unified command. And that was really important because there were so many different things that had to take place simultaneously. Like I talked about, putting together those manuals and pamphlets and identifying our response to contagious virus protection, as well as our marketing campaigns. And there was a lot of decisions to be made. And so that worked very well for us. My advice for other agencies is really, really watch the CDC guidelines. We pull that up daily, and that is our guiding document. So I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, CDC provided a 60-page document, some of which was very relevant to us because it was how to re-implement your businesses when you're bringing employees back to work. We have a number of employees telecommuting, so we regularly watch the CDC guidelines and try to develop our plan based upon that.
So from your advice, stay current with what CDC is saying, and the situation's evolving and changing daily. So I could appreciate that bit of that suggestion. We at Safety Center have recognized, and through some of our clientele, that there's a lot of stress going on related to COVID, the known, the unknown. There's stress, anger, anxiety as a mental health aspect that has to be addressed and taken seriously as an organization, but not just for your own employees, but for in your case, ridership. And so the question is, how are you at SacRT approaching the mental health aspect for engaging your own colleagues, but also for those of dealing with the public and the writers, if you would?
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, as far as dealing with our own personnel, the biggest thing was giving information quickly, accurately, being able to answer questions. When we were doing training, I mean, we extended most of our trainings longer than we would normally allot, just to provide people an opportunity to ask questions related to the virus, to their protection, what the risk factors were based on what we knew. And it was just a good way to one, let them air out their concerns, and that's fair, because I mean, many of these, for those of us in the health and safety realm, we deal with this on a routine basis, maybe not in a pandemic form, but dealing with it and understanding it is easy. But personnel that are doing other jobs, they need accurate information and timely information. So in that, I would echo that our marketing team did a great job of putting that information out in the, in one of Lisa's ideas was just in kind of an FAQ format, so that way people could, questions that we're getting routinely, that they could see things on a regular basis. Additionally is we have a couple of programs that were in place already, and Lisa can speak to those regarding emergency assistance.
So we have two programs that we already have in place, and one really unique thing that we provide for our employees is employee assistance program, and many agencies have that, but we actually have a counselor on site. So employees have access to her on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and certainly can make an appointment so other days of the week. So we reminded the employees that we have that special service, and then we have a peer support program throughout our agency that our peers can come and help one another, and we reminded the entire agency that we had that program and who they could reach out to.
Excellent. And Lisa, can you inform us, tell us, how big is the agency? How many employees are we talking about?
So we just took paratransit back, and we call it SacRT Go on Sunday. So now we have over 1,300 employees.
That's impressive. A huge organization and a lot to consider. So great, thank you. Next question is, what messages would you like to share with our neighbors in our community, right, who depend on the use of public transit and depend on SRT to get them around?
The first thing I want to share is we've been very lucky, but we have not had any of our employees test positive for COVID. And so we monitor that daily. We are doing absolutely everything we can and that the CDC recommends, to the extent that we can financially, to implement programs that everyone is safe on our ridership. And Steve spoke to fogging the vehicles. So we constantly are purchasing new equipment to increase the amount of fogging to protect our passengers and our ridership. And I think it's important to note that we have social distancing on our trains as well as our buses. We're also providing masks for our ridership. We're taking temperature checks of every employee every single day to make it the absolute safest that we can for our ridership. And I do believe the message to be sent is that it is safe to ride public transportation.
Great confidence builder in a time when things are so uncertain. So to feel confident that, if I were to step on a SacRT piece of equipment, bus, train, that all protocols have been put in place and that I'm as safe there as I would be out on the street. So hats off to you guys for that. Last question, and that is, since this virus is a challenge and requires a collaborative approach, right? You guys rely on writers to be informed and to play their role. Let's see, so how can writers write more effectively, more efficiently, play that role in keeping public safe and reducing stress and anxiety of other writers?
Wear a mask
Nice.
is the first one. And realize that that a mask is the best thing you can do to protect everyone around you. And if someone doesn't wear a mask, realize we have them available to hand out for people. Additionally, if someone still chooses not to wear a mask, there may be an underlying medical condition that prevents them from wearing a mask. So the idea is that we're not looking for people to confront, to begin arguing with other people about their wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. That's something we will do as an agency, and we have we've discussed that internally quite a bit. And our first thing is really the education or soft approach, which is we ask you to put it on, and then we will offer you a mask if you don't have one. And then we don't want to end up in one of those conflict situations that we've all seen on the news.
Absolutely. Lisa, anything else to that point?
I think just as the governor's coming out, the governor came out today with even stronger messaging about wearing masks. There will be a point where we're going to have to refuse ridership if someone just blatantly refuses to wear a mask. And we really want to heavily educate people. We want to provide transportation for people, but we need to do it safely. So safety is number one. So absent of a medical condition that somebody might have, if you're able to wear a mask, please wear a mask so that we can get you where you need to go.
So, and last question before we close, and that is that if your writers have questions, they want more information, can you direct them how to get in touch or how to get their questions answered?
Sure, there's a multitude of ways. We have a website, SacRT.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. So you can reach out to us on social media and or through our website.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I'd like to just ask one last thing, and that's a close for both of you. If you would like to address your ridership, our safety professionals, word of advice, or anything in closing, I'd like to open the floor to you.
You can never have too much PPE. We'll start with that.
Absolutely.
Just when you think a pandemic is all that's in front of you and then what you need to deal with as an agency, there's always more that's about to come. And I think we saw that with protest, and we had some other, some things we had to combat at the same time to make our system as safe as possible.
Well,
so don't let your guard down.
Perfect. Well, on behalf of Safety Center, I'd like to say thank you very much for taking the time to share with us, the progress that you've made and what you're doing to keep riders safe. And I hope that yourselves and all of your staff stay safe as well. So once again, thank you so much.
We have to keep moving. We know we play a critical role to help those that must travel get to where they need to go, transporting people to essential jobs and keeping critical functions in the Sacramento region in operation. Since COVID-19 transformed the world, a lot has changed. For us here at SacRT, we have modified our service levels to meet changing ridership patterns while ensuring proper social distancing. We cannot stress enough that the safety, health, and well-being of our employees and customers is a top priority. Our frontline team members are some of the most dedicated people you will ever meet. True heroes, putting the Sacramento community before themselves each and every day. Not all heroes wear capes. Ours wear uniforms. We're giving them the personal protective equipment to make their workspace as safe as possible, like masks, gloves, and hand sanitizer. And we are also sanitizing our buses, light rail vehicles, and facilities every day. We are making sure our bus drivers have ways to maintain social distancing. We have installed plexiglass and detachable chain barriers by the driver's seat, requiring rear door boarding on buses, and reducing touch points on light rail vehicles by automatically opening doors for customers during peak hour commutes at every station. We are doing everything on our part to keep the public safe. However, protection against COVID-19 is everyone's responsibility. The most important thing people can do to help flatten the curve and reduce exposure is to stay home and only travel for essential reasons. SacRT was there for you before COVID-19. We are here now, and we will continue to be here for you when this is all over to keep the Sacramento region moving forward. Thank you for your continued confidence in us, and again, we can't thank our frontline employees enough. Heroes moving heroes.